First and foremost, I want to say peace. This is the activated new bright 10. And this video is going to be on the term cutting the head off the snake. Where did that term come from? Cutting the head off the snake. Now, if you go back to the Bible and you go back to religion, Christianity, dealing with the Israelites, all that has, like I said before, the Bible's metaphors. It's all metaphors. Metaphors, and you break down metaphor. Metaphor, mental war, or mental for, dealing with the fourth dimension. So, cutting the head off the snake. That was a term that was being used by the Greeks, being used by Rome, all those European societies, because for one reason why they use that is when you're dealing with the Egyptians and the pharaohs had the golden snake on their forehead. They had the golden snake on their forehead. And what is the forehead? Why would they call their head a forehead? Because they were receiving from the upper dimensions, and they knew that the next dimension was the fourth dimension. So that's why they call it the forehead. Because you can have a 3 head, you can have a 2 head, you can have a 1 head. But the forehead, it's all symbolic into tapping into the intel, tapping into those frequencies that's being beamed down through the atmosphere right now as we speak, and it's going to get stronger and it's getting faster. Also, the planet and everything's starting to speed up. Everything's speeding up. That's why you're dealing with the 5G technology, going back to 5G. And, there was a lot of conspiracy theories going on with 5G. But the reason why one of the reasons why, because there's multiple reasons why it got put out. One of the reasons why is because everything's speeding up. The minds of the children speeding up. And I'm going to give you an example. When I was visiting my son out in Connecticut, my son lives on the East Coast in Connecticut, 2 hours from New York. So my son, I went to go visit him when he's 21 right now. I went to go visit him when he was, I think, 11. And I stayed a whole summer with him out there in Connecticut. And I'm just using this as an example on how everything's speeding up. My son, when I got on the computer, my son got on that computer and was showing me stuff I had no idea about. And he was moving fast. He was moving faster than I was dealing with the computer, because I'm not computer savvy. I'm really not computer savvy, right? But when it comes to this intel, I'm very savvy when it's coming to this intel. So dealing with the Egyptians, that's why they had and they use gold. They use gold because gold's a good conductor. So that's why they was using gold. They might have had some copper ones too also, because we're not the ones that have these artifacts. We're not the ones that had the artifacts. So it could have been copper, it could have been gold. I don't know, because they both look similar depending on the gloss to it. So cutting the head off the snake, it's all metaphors. Going back to the Greeks, going back to the Romans, it's all metaphors. They used that term because, like I was breaking down the manifestation, when they were saying that, go finesse man, because everything's backwards. Finessing man, manifestation. So when you're dealing with the term cut the head off the snake, they were trying to cut the head off. What was that? They was trying to go infiltrate, right, and get to the leaders, and cut the head off the leaders. Right, so and then go back to those old movies. Not even old movies. There's some recent movies, but if you go back, I use movies as an example because a lot of the reality is in the movies. So I'm gonna deal with one movie. The movie 300 Spartans. Right, and remember when that the Persian had came to, I think it was Greece. Excuse me. When the Persian army came to Greece, what did he have? Remember when he was on a horse? And then he had the horse, he had the heads of the kings. He had the heads of the kings because that was all symbolic to cutting the head off the snake. That's what that meant. They were cutting the heads off the snake. when you're dealing with that movie. Because these pharaohs and some of these kings that were in power back in the day, they had to shed their skin. What do I mean by that? I broke this down over 3 years ago. The reason why serpents shed their skin, because that's dead weight. It's dead weight. What do I mean by dead weight? The exterior or the exterior of their skin was dead. So why would you carry around something that's dead, especially mentally dead? Why would you carry that around with you? What do? You shed it. You put it, you shed it in the present and leave it in the past and focus on the future. I'm going to repeat myself. You shed it in the present, leave it in the past, and focus on the future. That's where there was a term, because I broke that down 3 years ago. 3 or 4 years ago on how that's the reason why that was, because all this is metaphors, all this is symbolism, because everything dealing with this reality and dealing with this three-dimensional matrix, you always have to know everything is built on codes and symbolism. So when they say cut the head off the snake, they're talking about the top of the they're talking about the top. Cut the top off. What is the top? Might be a leader. It might be your mind. It might be the intel that you're receiving. They're always looking to cut the head off the snake, because when you go back and you look at the Bible, when they say wise as a serpent, why would that be in the Bible? Wise as a serpent. So what are they saying? Cut off the wisdom. Cut off the wisdom, cut off the knowledge, cut off the intel. Cut off all three. Dealing with the metaphors. Why would they section off? Why would they section off reptiles from mammals? Really think about that. Why would they section off reptiles from mammals? They're all living objects, but why would they separate them? Really think about that. Why would they separate them? Because a lot of the mammals that's on the planet are genetically modified. Breaking down, because when we came here, like I said before, the reason why I say we is because if you're in the upper dimensions, then you can tap into the future. And the reason why, when the gods came here, right, when we came here, right, they had to mix their genetics with what was on the planet. What was on the planet? Dinosaurs, right, reptilians. So in order for your minions or your people that you made, you have to mix it with your DNA, and you have to mix it with what DNA is on the planet, so they can breathe what? The gas that's on the planet. Because when you're dealing with billions of stars, billions of galaxies, everybody in the cosmos might not breathe oxygen. Right? They might breathe helium. They might breathe a different type of gas. Look at the concept of the dinosaurs. What were they doing? They were laying eggs. They were laying eggs, and then the eggs would hatch, and then they would protect their offspring. And then when you're dealing with mammals, and you're dealing with humans, and you're dealing with man and mankind, right? Where's the eggs at? It's in the woman. There's an egg inside a woman. And then the egg bursts inside the woman's womb, which is their water bursting. Then they go through having a baby, that procedure. So where did that come from? Where did the eggs come from? If you really sit down and think about it, where did that come from? Being wise as a serpent deals with the mind, deals with what you can receive and what you can dish out. Being somebody in this three-dimensional realm and really realizing what's going on with these doctrines, this Bible, all these religions out here. And to show you that the connection, the connection to the minds on a planet is starting to evolve, because this one teacher was breaking it down on how everything was connected by magnetism, electrodes, electrons, and electricity. It's the same thing dealing with the upper dimensions, because if they want to cut you off, they're going to cut your head off. What is your head? Your head is your mind, because they'll cut you off if they don't feel that you're worthy. Because if you're in the future, then you're up there orchestrating things. See, that's where the term cutting the head off the snake comes from, because if you wasn't worthy, then they just cut off your intel. That's all they did. So that's what the term came from Europe. I mean, that term came from the Greeks, cutting the head off the snake, because they already know who the snake was. And what they do, they switched it. You know, these cats in these so-called black neighborhoods, they're like, oh, he's a snake. He's slithery. You can't trust him. You notice they say that, right? That came from mankind. That came from mankind, because they always want to put a negative aspect on the snake, when the only thing about the dinosaur genetics, the only thing about that is that those genetics was on the planet first. That's why they're trying to cut the head off the snake. The head, what is your head? Your head is your mind. That's why the Egyptians had the snake on their forehead, dealing with the fourth dimension, because they were tapping and receiving. Who taught them that? Who taught them that? The ones from the future. The ones from the future taught the Egyptians that. That's why they had the serpent. That's why when you see some of these teachers out here, they got the serpent with them, because they understand that. They understand that. Serpents are everywhere. Going back to the book of Genesis, when it says, don't touch the fruit from the tree. The tree. Where do snakes be at? Snakes be in trees. Snakes are everywhere. The snakes are everywhere. They're in trees. They're underground. They're in the water. Right? The only places they're not in is cold places. That's the same thing dealing with mankind and dealing with the Caucasus Mountains. When you was dealing with the Caucasus Mountains and dealing with the cavemen that were up there, wasn't no snakes up there, because they couldn't survive up there. But there was always in what? Trees. What does that deal with? The tree of life. They were in trees. They were everywhere but where it was cold. You know why? Because why would they come? Why would the gods come here and mix their DNA in a cold region? Why would they mix their DNA with a cold region? Now look at the other regions, right? The other animals that's in the region. What could survive in the cold in the regions? Common animals. What? Dogs, wolves, even some monkeys. Monkeys can even survive in cold environments if they can get food. So that's where that term came from. Cut the head off the snake. The head, what is the head? The head is the mind. the mind, or also can be a leader. So you cut that off, everything else will fall. Everything else will fall if you cut that off, because everything on this planet is a mental war. Everything on this planet is a mental war, dealing with higher frequencies. Magnetism. A lot of teachers ain't talking about magnetism. Couple of us are, but the magnetism, right? Dealing with the metals that's in your system. Because you got metal in your system. Because that is the flesh dealing with this 3D reality. Reality in the flesh. Now I'm gonna go break down. When you look at the movie, not even the movie. When you look at that show, what was that show? The Transformers, right? It was the Transformers. Look at Optimus Prime. Look at Optimus Prime. Optimus Prime symbol, right? The Autobot symbol. Then look at the Decepticon symbol, right? They both were fallen. They both fell to Earth, right? I'm using this as an example. They both fell to Earth. But if you look at the Decepticon symbol, they're the bad guys. They're the bad guys. They're the ones, trying to get the Megatron cube, the cube, right? But if you look at their symbol, what is that? What is that symbol? That's a serpent. Dealing with, see, that's why they do that, because they're dealing with witchcraft and they're dealing with spells. So subconsciously, they push the Decepticons to be an evil group of beings that came from a different solar system down on this planet, and they push the Autobots as being good. But the Autobots, if you look at their symbol, their symbol's more mankind-like. Then if you look at the Autobot symbol, what's that? When you look at the Autobot symbol, you know what that is? That's a serpent. That's a serpent symbol. Because like I said, everything is backwards. They push stuff backwards. They push everything backwards. What's life about? It's about balance, right? It's about balance. So, dealing with Thanos. When Thanos was trying to get all the Infinity Stones, and then he wanted to balance out the universe. But what did they portray Thanos as? As the villain. When he was actually doing what's supposed to be done. Here goes another one for y'all. Dealing with G.I. Joe. Remember with G.I. Joe, who was they fighting? They was fighting the Cobras. When G.I. Joe was doing their thing, the Cobras came, and then all of a sudden they're the villains. See, that's what mankind does, man. They flipped everything. Just like a quarter. Straight in the air. Just flipped it. Dealing with cutting the head off the snake. If you want to get a problem, if you have a problem in your life, you cut the head off the snake. That's all you do. Because that is a metaphor. And what the Europeans was doing, and the Greeks, the Romans and all that, back in the day, they knew that. They knew you cut the head off the snake mentally, physically, or all the above. It's to activate it. New Bright 10. Peace. Quasar. If you like the way the world is, don't like, don't share, don't subscribe. If you want it to alter, move at the speed of light.